Hey guys, so patch 11.8 is out. You can see the patch notes on CDPR site. We're gonna do a quick recap. We just went through the dev video. Watch it if you want to understand the dev reasoning. We're just gonna go quick recap. I'm gonna summarize my impressions about the patch and what I think they're gonna change about the meta. So, Cosimo, still meme card, but now somewhat playable. Blue Dream, same thing. This will be in the same tier as like Uma. You can play now in fun decks. Iris is interesting. It's gonna probably see play in Erland decks. It's just a carryover card. It might also, in some like niche decks, be used for consistency along with like Iris Companions. I'd have to try it. I don't know for sure. Mandrake 8 to 6. This is now much more playable. The worry that everybody has, this will be used in like Sabbath abuse decks. Anything with a defender, it will be used to restore defender because this restores statuses. We talked a lot about Mandrake earlier when we were doing our deep dive, but Mandrake changes a card to its base deck builder state. What does that mean? If you use it on a defender that's at 5 power, like a monster defender, it will go to 7 power, 4 armor, and it will regain its defender status. So its power, armor, and statuses all get changed back to the way that it is in deck builder. If you use it on a self eater with 1 base power, it will change to 5, because in the deck builder, self eater has 5 base power. If you use it on a Melusine that's been buffed to 35 and has a base power of 20, it will change it to a 7 power unboosted Melusine, the same that's in deck builder. So this is not like a Spore, and it's not like a Geralt Axii or Yurden or anything like that. This is its own category. The description doesn't explain it, but that's what this is. Also notable is that this is an organic card, and you can essentially use it as a Purify in an Arrakis deck, or any deck that runs Wispus, because you can tutor it, right? Until recently, there was no organic cards that could purify your own units. This is very interesting to me for that reason. It can also purify an offensive, like it can... not really purify, but like reset an enemy unit. So Theana provision cost changed from 12 to 10. This is still answer or lose in meme decks. I don't see this changing a lot, but someone might come up with a broken combo, and in a deck that already has lots of other stuff you gotta answer, and it might become a problem. Riptide, this is now slightly better in non-Ogoroid decks, worse in Ogoroid decks or decks that can establish might. I don't like this change, but it is what it is. This, we don't really understand why it was changed, but evolution is now 1 point better. This is a buff for Arrakis. You're still not going to play it in Ogoroids, most likely. Maybe some decks that run like Roach and Knickers will play it also, because it's 9 points now. 1 more point, but it's still not. The spawning a Necker on a... It's like, I think that... I get the impression that maybe they were hoping Ogoroids would become a Thrive archetype, but as long as you have cards that benefit from the number of Ogoroids, you're not going to play any Thrive units in an Ogoroid deck that aren't Ogoroids. So no one's going to be playing Larva, no one's going to be playing like Drowner or Bruxa, or... I mean, those cards are all a bit power crept anyway. Cards that deploy for 2 or 3 or 4 points. Good luck! You're not going to keep them for round 3, and you're not going to play them in round 1 because you're going to get out-tempoed. This is a good change, but Marine will still get some play. Probably mostly in Soldiers. But there's a lot of competition for the 5P slot in Nilfgaard. Battle Station's not changed, so Nilfgaard's very happy about that. Nilfgaard will still be super strong next patch. But at the top range, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So Demovan got a big nerf. It's now like not possible to play 3 cards in 1 turn with Demovan. I suspect Demovan will be used to play Defender to protect it. Or maybe in Stockpile. I don't know. But this is a much deserved nerf. Very impactful for NR. We'll see. People might just cut this and still play Mutagen and Temple. But Onager, I know this is supposed to be a nerf, but in any Mutagen deck, I'm convinced this is a buff. I think it's also a buff in Golden Necker decks that play musicians. And yeah, this card is still busted. We'll still see it played in Priestess and Siege and Engine Vomit and Soldier Spam and maybe even Reavers, I don't know. The Reavers have been rare this season. I think mostly because of how much Skellige there was at the start. They're probably good now, but don't tell anyone. I suspect we'll see more Reavers next season. Scoia'tael, Hostage Taker power change from 3 to 4 has a higher floor now. This is more playable than it was before. The main problem with traps is you have to play elves, and when you play elves, you have to play high provision elves, and so you don't have a lot of provision spare. Like, there's not a lot of 5p cards that get play in an elves deck, because you got Reordain and Angus and Simless and Heatwave and Heist. Like, that's a lot of provisions that are already instantly like accounted for. And you also need to play Waylays, and you need to play Vanadane, and you need to play 4p Purifies, and like, what's left? You usually don't have room for 5p cards like this, especially conditional situational ones that require that you have already played 3 traps. And like, aside from Reordain, like, you don't really have a way to tutor traps. So people aren't playing Yorvis Gambit, it's too expensive. So I don't know. I have some ideas about this. I might try a Deadeye Ambush Golden Necker deck with Mentors and Cosimo. We'll see. We'll see tomorrow. Yuta, power change from 12 to 13. Yes, this is a good change. I cannot believe that they didn't do the same thing for Pugo. Pugo was literally outclassed by Goliath, because Goliath got buffed in the same patch that buffed Greatswords. I just think it's silly for Skellige to have like 7 different 6p cards that all play for more than 10 points. But hey, I'm somebody who doesn't think Skellige should be the Point Slam faction, or the faction with all the best beasts or all the best monsters. Fukusia, Svalblood, Kraken, you know, Hofruz, Melusine, you know, the birds and the bees are all Skellige apparently, and all the sea monsters, and sirens and shit, like messengers, yeah, like whatever. Moving on. Care Troll, provision cost from 9 to 10, well-deserved nerf. It was auto-included in every Golden Necker SK deck. I'm sad that this won't be playable in SK Golden Necker anymore. I would have preferred that they changed the power, like the points that this plays for. For example, I would have removed the give 6 armor to an allied unit part of it. Like, the fact that you can clash with something is already really good. Like, it's a Cyclops that you can play in the same turn, like, you can click on the same turn you play any other card. And Skellige had lots of cards that wanted to get damaged, and Skellige had lots of cards that get armor, or gain armor, or want to lose armor, or want to lose points. Like, it's just... Makes sense, because SK is... Sorry, I'm not going to recheck. Armor Smith, power change from 2 to 4, so it has a much higher floor now. Like if it's a brick or something. Provision cost change from 5 to 4, so it's actually cheaper and has a bigger body. But instead of boosting by 1 for every 2 armor, it's gonna instead of boosting by the amount of armor, it's gonna do 1 boost for every 2 armor. In other words, before, if your Terror of the Seas had 10 armor, you would play an Armor Smith, and it would come down as a 2 body and boost an ally unit by 10, right? So it would play for 12. It was 12 for 5. Now, when you play it, it's 4 provision. It's going to come down as a 4 and boost an allied unit by 5. So it'll be a 9 for 4. That's still busted. This is still a really good card, and now it's cheaper. That being said, I still am in favor of the change because it increases the floor, reduces the ceiling, and makes the card, makes deck building in Skellige more flexible. I fundamentally don't like armor from your hand that opponent cannot interact with turning into points. I think this should only work on an armor on a unit that's already on the board, and I think Hjalmar should be reworked because that card is like very, very binary. I think that for a 4p card, this is way too good, but I can say the same thing about Funeral Boat, which brings us to the next thing, which is that it only triggers during the owner's turn. This is a very good change. It is what this card should have been released as from the start. Like, me consuming my own units as a Death Wish deck should not give the opponent points. Me playing special should not kill my own units. Like, what the hell were they thinking with the original version of this? This card is still insane for 4p. You know, but it's, you can still like Seagull for 12 if there's a funeral blood on the board or whatever. Like, and all the armor carryover, etc., etc. But there will be decks that answer it or don't play into it because they don't have units, or their units have lots of armor, and pirates will have an even harder time. And so, like, pirates are just, I just don't like the current state of Onslaught. Ever since the Onslaught reworked, while it did make them much more viable, it's still very, like, punishing to certain decks. And, like, if the Pirates player draws Terror of the Seas in their hand in round 1, they get 1 billion points. If they don't, they don't. And, like, just this idea of every time an opponent's unit becoming damaged, not when you damage, just whenever it becomes damaged, means that, like, some matchups, just Skeleton player automatically wins. Like, if you're in an SK mirror and you play armor up, oh, Grat, you just gave 3 armor to every card in his deck, and that 3 armor now is like 3 points. You know, on a clash unit, and it's more points if they have an armor smith or 2, or it's more points if they have Yalmar. Like, I just don't like this reinforcing feedback loop of some advantage becoming an even bigger and bigger advantage, or some matchup disparity becoming even bigger. But I think pirates are gonna be a lot less common. They're already less common in high MMR, and high MMR is usually ahead of like 2400s. So as far as like why Onslaught is anytime units get damaged, it's because of Cataclysm. Because Cataclysm and Rain are weather effects that trigger on the opponent's turn. And so if you made it so that Onslaught only gives your units armor during your turn, then it would break a lot of synergy with Rain and with Cataclysm. Or with things like, for example, the melee boat. Like, you play it, and then when your opponent plays a card during their turn, they take damage, right? So if you make it so Onslaught only works when during your turn, Pirates is just dead. I think in an ideal world, I'd make it so when damage caused by the cards you've played makes an opponent's unit become damaged, then gain armor. But, like, that's probably a non-trivial thing to code. It's probably not possible, and therefore not going to happen anytime soon. Stratagem is an order. Honor just says order on it. I'm sure that's intended. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think Onager working with leaders is a good thing. I think Onager wording should be changed that when you use an order on a unit, it should you know, damage random enemy. But yeah. Moving on to Syndicate, so we can wrap up this recap. Captain Yaga provision cost changed from 13 to 11. This is now a lot more viable. It's still probably only going to see play in Jackpot. I haven't honestly played much Jackpot this season. Yaga was just not worth it compared to Line Pockets being so much better. And also Line Pockets is always my favorite Syndicate archetype. And off the books, those two I've liked the most. Or the favorite leader, I should say. Acherontia, Vice requirement changed from 10 to 12. So what this means is right now, Acherontia, when you play it, when you spend 10 coins during a turn, or just in general, like after Acherontia hits the board, every time you spend 10 coins or more, you get to play the top card from your deck. Now you have to play 12 points or more. And this may not seem like a big change, but it's a pretty big change because, like, the way you play Acherontia is you have 3 coins, you drop Acherontia with a spender already on the board and Sesame in the graveyard. So you drop Acherontia, you go to 9 coins. You spend the 9 coins, go to 0, and then you leader spend as many times as you need to get like 4 or 8 coins from your Sesames, and then you spend those coins also still in the same turn so you can play the next card. So now, instead of like needing to spend 20 points to get 2 cards, you need to spend 24 points to get 2 cards. But it's almost impossible to do that, right? Unless you already had like perfect setup. Most likely this will only ever play one card, which is good because 6 power, 6 coins, and the top card is already very, very good for a gold. But this is a significant nerf, especially at the high level, because people can disrupt your sesames. You have to draw them. People can disrupt your defender. They can heatwave your candle. They can, you know, there's things that decks do to deal with Syndicate because it's right now like the strongest deck. You probably haven't seen it if you're not playing in Pro Rank or higher MMR, but this is by far the strongest deck this season. And so we'll have to see what this does. Last change of this patch notes is Deckhand has a profit of 1. Right, you know, it goes from having like a floor of 4 to having a floor of 4 and 1 coin. Good. The reason this card doesn't see play isn't because it's a terrible card. It's just the competition for 4P in the decks that currently see play is really high. And today you play Line Pockets with Acherontia. It's the best one. And Line Pockets uses its 4P slots for either spenders or crime cards. This is neither. This is an engine. Line Pockets needs no additional engines. It already has Acherontia. It has Intimidates that can spend. It has cards like Disciple that give you coin and spend and give you points. Like, it, you know, this just doesn't isn't going to replace the existing bronzes that get played. That being said, you know, Vice 3 boosts itself by 1 is essentially adding a 30% more value to all the coins that you spend. So right now, for example, Candle is initially a 2-for-1, then a 3-for-2, then a 4-for-3 spend, and Candle is a very good card. Tunnel Drill is a 3-for-2, that's a very good card. Disciple is a 2-for-1, very good card. Jackal can be 3-for-2 if you're a Horde 7 or higher. That's a good card. Like, those are good spenders, right? Even Cleaver is 5-for-4, decent spend. This makes every coin that you spend be 33% or be a third of a point more. So now a Disciple, instead of being a 2-for-1, it's now a 2.3-for-1, right? So it's a 15% increase in the effectiveness of spending on a Disciple. It's a 33% increase on the amount of spending on a Brawler. Anything that spends 1 coin at a time, 2.6. If I spend 1 coin on Disciple, I have triggered a third of this. So no, it's 2.3-for-1 spender. Instead of becoming a 2-for-1 spender, it's a 2.3-for-1, which is a 15% increase. So it makes 1-for-1 spenders 33% better. It makes 2-for-1 spenders like 16.5% better, right? Okay, so what do I think about this patch? I think for a small patch, it's actually very impactful in the sense that last card drop, we saw probably the most broken cards in the history of Gwent, and almost all of them are getting nerfed, Care Trolled, Demavand, Funeral Boat, Onager, although Onager nerf isn't really a nerf. All getting nerfs, that's good. Riptide, okay, whatever. But the biggest offenders in the meta are still, to me, Battle Stations, Temple, Mutagenerator. So, I think that those will still be problematic. I don't understand why Temple hasn't been nerfed. Temple is literally like 30-for-12. I'm not exaggerating. Temple's, not counting the 4Ps that just got nerfed, points for provision, Temple is probably the most ridiculous card of all time. So, justice for Temple. Nerf Temple, burn the Temple to the ground, download militarily, and we hope that next patch we see some changes to Temple. Other than that, very good patch. I am excited a little bit for the Iris change, for the Cosimo change, and I want to see what happens with the meta now that some of the OP stuff got nerfed. The devs also said that 11.9, which is the next patch, is going to have more substantial changes. So that's more reworks, I guess. This was more of a balance-focused one. So I'm excited to see what they do then. Thank you for watching. Drop a like and a subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you ever have any questions or want to see me play a specific deck, just stop by Twitch, ask me. I'm always happy to help.